Building your brand around an ideal client avatar makes sense if you're a large corporation, not a personal brand. Join me and founder of Brand Fame, Hello Fame Agency, and co-founder of Fame for Good, Minling Chuang, for an insightful discussion on soul-aligned branding that will shift the way you look at branding for good. In this episode, you'll learn how to talk to the hearts of your audience, why fear-based messaging doesn't create loyalty. You'll learn an exercise to help you get clear on what it is that you're here to say, and how to stop chasing your audience by building a magnetic brand to draw them in. Minling Chuang is a brand soul activator and mentor for impact-driven entrepreneurs. She's on a mission to energize the pure potential within each person she touches, one brand at a time. With over 8 years of experience in branding and marketing, working on top brands such as Nestle Toll House, Lean Cuisine, Toyota, Minling's brilliance is helping her clients, from entrepreneurs to small businesses, strategically evolve their brands in the market and position them so they can become an eye-popping it brand that turns heads. She is passionate about bringing together her 8+ years of branding and marketing experience and her 10+ years of personal development knowledge together to help her clients become true masters of their brand and truly own their brand. Minling holds an MBA from Indiana University and a BA from the University of Southern California. She's been featured on Forbes, The Huffington Post, Thrive Global, BuzzFeed, numerous podcasts, and has spoken at various conferences. Now it is time to learn soul-aligned branding with Minling Chuang. Hey, thought leaders, I am back, and I know I say this all the time about how excited I am for this next guest, but I'm actually honestly super fucking excited for this next guest because not only is she a special guest, but she is also one of my best friends and soul sisters, and I haven't had anyone talk about this topic on the podcast before. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to one of my besties, Minling. Minling, welcome to today's Thought Leader.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and jam out with you.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you listening, Minling and I just had a massive dance party at my cousin's DJ event on Friday or Saturday. So we were dancing our little asses off all night, and it was fun. And now we're ready to record this podcast. One of the things that I love most about the work that you do, Minling, is in the world of entrepreneurship and leadership, it seems like there's a dime a dozen, like branders, marketers, people who build your websites, like all sorts of things. And I remember when I was first getting started up and being part of a ton of Facebook groups, and we were being told, like, get your branding, build your website, get your cards, get your logo, like all this shit. And really, my brand has evolved so much from that day because I have gotten to know myself more and been able to bring that into my brand. Whereas before, I think it felt like a facade. And the way in which you teach branding is really from this super soul aligned place. So why don't we start by you sharing with our audience, what is it that you fucking do when it comes to branding?
That is such a good question, because when everybody comes to me, when I tell them that I do branding and everybody comes to me, they're like, okay, so you do websites, right? And I'm like, wait a minute. Every single time I talk about branding, everybody thinks of logos. Everybody thinks of websites, and that is not the first place that you can start. It's absolutely not. The reason why I do what I do and really understand your soul, your truth, your message from deep within you is because that is what your brand is all about. Your brand is about your feeling. It's about how people perceive you. It's about that energy that you exude out into the market. And so if you try to have a website or have a graphic designer create a website for you, or if you go out there and try to pretend to be somebody that you're not, because that happens when you're first starting out a lot, then people are going to feel that energetic misalignment. That's why when you don't have a message that resonates with you, when you're out of alignment with your message, it just doesn't lead to more clients because people can feel that. So what I do is I really helped my clients get tapped into what it is they want to say, what are they here and born to say in a deep way. And we go deep into their soul to figure that out. And then from there, we craft their message. And then from there, we create their brand. So branding doesn't start with the websites. It starts from really understanding who you are as a person, what your message you're here to share, and going deep there first.
I love this because it's bringing up a personal experience that I want to share that I haven't really shared anywhere before yet. And it was this when I had hired a specific group, like they were kind of like marketing, branding, PR all merged into one. They had recruited me, and then I went ahead and hired them. And I remember them going through my brand and saying, okay. This is really what you need to be doing. And this is really what you need to be saying. And this is how you need to be saying it. And I was like, okay, cool. Like I kind of jive with this. I kind of don't. And it was like they were coaxing me into being in alignment with something that didn't originally feel like it was in alignment. And they were throwing shit at me like, oh, maybe you're just scared. And this is what's actually going to bring you the success. And this is what's actually going to fucking work. And this is what your audience wants. And I was like, yeah, this all sounds good. Great. Let me do this. And by doing that, I actually found myself not pushing my products and my services out as much because there was a misalignment. I didn't know that at the time. I just felt like resistance to putting it out there and kind of self-sabotaging everything. And that caused me to like clear the slate and get back to like, what is it that I really want to fucking say? And like, what am I actually passionate about? So it sounds like what you do and the process that you have and teach is doing that from the get-go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to do it from the get-go, and it's okay to shift and change. And I know you personally have evolved since you first came out, and same with me too. I've evolved my message and the way that I show up. But the most important thing is to make sure that you are true to who you are in that moment, true to who you are and what you believe and stand for in that moment, because your passion is going to be what people feel. Your passion is going to be what makes your brand unique and different than everybody else that's out there. And that's what's going to make you, stand out. That's what's going to have you create a different point of view and perspective. It's because of your unique voice. It's not saying the right things. It's not trying to fit into this box. It's not trying to find what's unique. You are innately unique just by being you. And all we have to do is tap into what it is you're here on this planet to say. And that's when you have power in the way that you show up, in your voice, in your photos, in your message. There's so much power in your own truth.
Yeah, I feel that 1,000%. I feel like me and you have been on parallel journeys over the past, like at least year.
Yes.
Where we've both been like really finding our superpowers and owning it. And I think that that's what our listeners want. I mean, that's what most entrepreneurs and leaders that I know want, is they want to be able to really tap into that power and stand with full conviction of it and be able to convey that in everything that they do. And in the world of social media, there's a lot of people who try and position themselves in a way that they think portrays confidence or conviction, but all it does is it creates like a misalignment. And so when you read their messaging, you're like, oh, wait, that doesn't feel like it's really them, or this feels a little forced or coerced, or, it just doesn't feel right. And I know that everyone listening has probably experienced that once or twice at least, and let that serve as a reminder that misalignment is felt. But it's tough, Minling. Like, it's tough when you're out here and you know you have a purpose and you want so desperately to make it happen. And at the beginning, you're being led in like 1,000 different directions. You see everyone doing it who's been doing it for years. Maybe people look at us and they're like, wow, look at them. And I want that now. So it's tough don't you think it's tough to start doing that from the get-go? Like, it is diving deep?
Yeah, it is tough, definitely from the get-go. I think that's where a lot of people get confused, because there's so many coaches out there trying to help you get started. And yes, like their method may work for them, but then there's also misinformation. So what I really like to do is get out of my mind and out of what I think people want to hear from me about, and really get into my heart. And I think this is an important thing and an important distinction. It took me a while to understand this, but when I first started, I was trying to think of like the cool taglines and, the things that would make me sound different or my unique positioning in the market. And I would use my head to try to figure it out. What I've learned in the process, and I innately knew this when I was working in corporate America, when I was working on launching products, I tapped into my heart and understood what it was that I was meant to say, and what at the time when I was working on Lean Cuisine, what the brand stood for. And I tapped into the heart of the brand. And so what you want to do when you're really struggling, especially when you're first starting out, is to get in a quiet space and let go of your mind. Sometimes I like to free write or free journal and write, what if I were to know what it is I'm here to say, what would it be? Or if I were to know what I want to speak about or what my truth is, what would that be? And just answer that question without thought. Just let your pen and hand and paper do all the work. So you don't want to analyze or judge what comes out on that paper, but really just allow your heart to speak. Allow your heart to speak and start to listen to it. That's when you start to get your internal wisdom and internal guidance on what you're here to do, without all the noise that everybody's feeding you from, any of the coaches. While there's good intention behind the coaching, you ultimately know what your truth is, and you have to feel in alignment. So that is what I would definitely recommend for you to do, to quiet out all the noise and the confusion.
Yeah. So Minling just offered some great journaling prompts. I highly recommend that you use them. Okay. Don't just let them die on this podcast. Actually go out and do it. And yeah, I think so many of us struggle between head and heart, especially again, when we're trying to build something, when we're trying to build a business, when we're trying to build a movement, when we're trying to build a message, and it's so heart-centered, it can be far too easy to get caught up in our minds, because we just want it to work. And so we go into let me figure out the logistics, and let me figure out the how, and let me see what everyone else is doing, comparison and all this shit. And it just drives us in the wrong direction.
Yes. And I want to say one more point about this, because you mentioned about, our mission. So let me go back to this. The reason why brands connect, and if you look at the top brands that are out there that are very, very connected, they're connected through their heart. They're not connected through the words. They're connected through their mission, what they're about, what they stand for. And so that's something that you want to think about when you are writing your post, when you are creating, your brand, is the heart connection. Because you're not just talking to other people's minds. People don't buy from a rational space. People buy from an emotional space. 95% of all purchasing decisions are made on the subconscious level, on an emotional level. And so the more you can realize and remember that you're connecting to people's hearts and you're talking to other people's hearts, that's where you want to speak from within yourself, the easier it gets, and the less crazy your mind gets to be, the less it shatters when you just remind yourself that you are in here in this business to create a heart connection. That is when people buy from you. Because again, 95% of all purchases are done on an emotional level. And so when you are able to create that heart connection, that is when your brand starts to take off. People can feel you.
Right. So let's talk about the ones who aren't doing it this way, but have perceived success, because I know that this is probably going to be something that comes up in our listeners' minds, right? They're going to be like, yeah, but so-and-so has this business that doesn't feel heart-centered at all. And they seem to be selling all sorts of programs and products by driving into really, really ugly fear places, or using fear-based tactics to get people in, and it doesn't feel heart-centered at all. So why does that work? And why is heart-centered branding and messaging better than that?
So fear is also an emotion as well too. So like I said, 95% of all purchases are made on an emotional level. They're playing on the fear emotion. So that is an energy vibration, and that's something that people play off of.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's not long lasting. If you want to have clients come to you over and over and over again, fear is only going to get you so far. And you can even look at, companies that are out there or brands that are out there that were once conglomerates, but they lost their heart connection. Look at Sears. Sears used to be like this conglomerate that like everybody and their mother shopped at, right?
Right.
But they had no message that was pulling at the heartstrings of their consumers and the clients. So they lost touch with what their consumers want, and they went bankrupt. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
wanted to shop there. There was no reason to shop there. So similarly, like, you want to look at the heart-centered place or your heart behind your brand, because that is what's going to build loyalty. So yes, those people might be successful right now. And yes, they'll probably bring in more people, but at some point there's going to be a drop off in people coming to them as repeat buyers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be harder for them to maintain that loyalty. When you have this heart-centered message and you're connecting on a different level in this space, you're going to gain the loyalty. You're going to have repeat customers. You're going to have loyal fans that support you and will share your work. And so it'll be easier in the long run for you to build a bigger following and a bigger, network of
Mm-hmm.
clients, and having more, money and impact. So short-term gain versus long-term gain, that's what I like to see, or that's what I see in this question.
Yeah, I love that, because the L word is like one of my favorite words in business, is loyalty. Because I think a lot of people don't think about that. Like, loyalty equals longevity. And a lot of people don't think about that, because again, you just discover your purpose, or you just discover your mission, and you're like, I want to fucking bring this out into the world, and you see everyone else doing it. And so you want results quick. And quick isn't always what creates loyalty. And so what I heard you say is really like, the fear doesn't create the loyalty. It's the heart connection that creates loyalty.
Yes, 100%. Fear can bring people in, yes, but it doesn't last. So
Right.
just remember that.
Yeah. So fear, yes, create sales for sure, for sure. But if we want loyalty, we have to create that heart connection. And I mean, we live in a time, in an age where like so much of our lives happen on like social media, on the digital landscape, and people crave connection more now than ever, I found. And so when you can connect deeply to people, they want more of you. I mean, for example, I am still the one who responds to like all my DMs, with the exception of a handful. But I'm still the one who responds to them. And I'll get the message time and time again, like, wow, like, thank you so much for taking the time to answer my question, or thank you so much for taking the time to share this, or whatever it is, because they value the connection. And then now that follower is not just a follower, they are a real member of my online community, someone who is an advocate for my work, because they feel that connection. And so it's definitely something that I've experienced firsthand. And it's definitely something that I really had to almost like shift my mindset around. And it's not because I never valued loyalty. I think, I don't know, like, it's just super easy to get caught up in the hype.
Mm-hmm.
Like, caught up in the hype of like, I need to do things this way, or I need to do this sort of branding. For example, the trend that we have with polarizing opinions right now.
I know, right? Oh gosh.
And it's like, oh, cool, polarizing works. It gets people likes. Let me throw a polarizing opinion online. And it's like, but that's not really what you believe. And so then they can't handle the
The backlash.
Yeah, right. It's crazy. But like, that's what I see people doing. It's like they see, and maybe some of our listeners have been a victim to this, and I've done this too, where you see something working for someone else, and then you think, well, if I do something similar, or if I do it this way, or if I brand myself this way, then I'll experience the same results.
Mm-hmm. I've done that too. So back in the day. So I think every entrepreneur at some point goes through that path. But it's It's hard when you are new and you're still trying to figure out your voice. I get it. I totally get it. But the quicker you can figure this out, the quicker you'll be able to have repeat clients and over and over and over again and have the success that you want. It's not necessarily an overnight thing. And that's what, like we were mentioning, like that's what people want. But in this day and age, people are craving the authenticity. And I see more and more companies, even if you look at big brands, and I love studying big brands, the brands that are doing really well seem to have more of a personal relationship with their audience. You can see it in the way that they respond to like their Twitter responses. You can see it in the way that they, show their love and care to their customers. And you can see how their customers respond by showering them with more love and loyalty as a result. That is the way that our age is going. That is where everything is shifting into. And you're going to be in the forefront if you do this now. So I really encourage you to do that work.
Yeah, what a great point. Yes, that is the way that our society is moving, because again, like people want to feel connected, and at the end of the day, I think everyone just wants to feel seen, heard, understood. And you can do that by creating that heart connection. But you said, you said this a few times, and it's the idea of finding our voice. And I know that that is something that so many people struggle with for a myriad of reasons, right? Like it's programming. Maybe you were never encouraged to speak your voice as a child, and now you're just like starting to uncover what that looks like, AKA my story.
Mine too. So that's why we love each other.
Right.
That's why we get it.
And I see so many people struggling with their voice. I mean, this is the root of my mission too. And for those people, and these people aren't just people who are green, they're not people who are like brand new to entrepreneurship or brand new to leadership. I think even the most experienced leaders reach a point where they're like, I have the success, but it doesn't feel fulfilling. And the fulfillment isn't just from external things, right? The fulfillment really comes from this internal alignment. And if the messaging isn't aligned, or if what you're doing or the programs that you're running aren't really what you want to do or what you want to run, then of course it's going to create this lack of fulfillment. And so we have like the beginners who struggle with finding their voice. And then we have the more experienced people, more experienced leaders who also struggle with uncovering their voice. So for those people, you've already offered the journaling tip, but what are some other tips that could help them really uncover their voice? Because, like if me and you just rewound our lives to like 5 years ago even and said, oh, just find your voice. It's like, that's a little easier said than done.
It definitely is. It's a process, and I've done this with other, 6 and 7 figure entrepreneurs too that have had success, and then they're like, okay, but this doesn't. I think my message is stale. Like I'm not passionate about it anymore. So it definitely has happened, and you and I have talked about it as well too. And I think the key point for if you are at a point in your business where you're like, okay, this message worked, but I need something different, is to go back and look at what are you passionate about saying now? What are you most passionate about doing? And I'll just share a little bit about my example. So I, started with branding and marketing, just branding marketing, because that was my background. I did it for corporations. I consulted Fortune 500 companies, like worked with really large brands. And I got tired of talking about, target markets and like how to brand yourself and all this stuff. And when I looked at what I was passionate about and what I was passionate about learning, it was the personal development side. It was really diving deep into that, because I've been also doing that for equally as long as I've done branding. That was like, it's over like 8 to 10 years now.
Wow. Yeah.
And so like both of those things fed me, but like what I was being drawn to, what I was more passionate about talking about was this personal development side. So it took me a little bit to realize that, I can marry these things together, personal development and branding, and create a new message around that you have to love yourself, that you have to find your own truth, that you have to find your own voice. And from that space, you brand yourself. From that space, you figure out what you're here to do and how the programs and the services and the clients that you want to serve, versus just talking just solely on what your ideal clients look like, what does your brand look like, what does it stand for. Now it's bringing in everything that I love, and this is giving me new energy into what it is that I want to talk about and say, and how I say it as well too. So
Mm.
that's something you want to look at, is like, what else are you passionate about that you have maybe been denying yourself to talk about, or that you've been too afraid to talk about this. I love meditation. I'm very spiritual. And for a while I was like, my people are going to think I'm crazy talking about meditation and like spiritual stuff within the realm of branding, right? But now it's
Right.
very much a piece of me, and I can't separate those two things when it comes to branding now.
Right.
And so that's what you want to look at, is like, what else are you passionate about that you've been either denying yourself or too afraid to share with world?
Yeah, and that's so interesting because um what I heard was like passion before the avatar, and yet we're quote unquote taught
Yeah.
to do these ideal client avatar, create your
Mhm.
ideal client avatar. Who's your ideal niche? And people get fixated on creating that. I mean, some of the biggest like um, digital business programs out there, I'm not naming what they are, but we all know what they are,
Yes, you do.
have this built in, like I design your ideal client. And so these new entrepreneurs get fixated on designing this ideal client, and it's almost like you're just making shit up.
Mhm.
And then you build out from there. Okay, now what are their needs? What are their problems? And it seems so counterintuitive when you put it that way versus like, what are you actually passionate about?
Yeah.
And that could be what you teach on. And then you start to uncover everything else afterwards, right? You'd start to
Mhm.
uncover more about your audience. I mean, I'm in this really interesting space in my business where um, I have narrowed it down to like the absolute thing that I am so fucking passionate about and fired up about. And now I'm really investigating my audience around that versus like going after the audience first and then trying to uncover all the things that you need to know.
Yeah.
Um, it's so counterintuitive.
It is counterintuitive. It is counterintuitive, and this is what I also learned, from my graduate work when I got my MBA, is to figure out who your ideal clients are
Right.
first. But it made sense from, I think a lot of people are taught that way because it made sense from a big corporation in terms of your brand, but it doesn't make
Mm-hmm.
sense for a personal brand because you are so
Mm.
invested in
Mm-hmm.
your business. So there's a difference between like a large corporation, the way that you do branding there, and your own personal brand, because you have to find that, like you said, your passion first, what it is you're desiring to share with those worlds. Because if you're desiring to share this idea, this program, this service to the world, chances are there are going to be people that are looking for exactly what you are creating, because
Mm-hmm.
you are not alone in this world and feeling the way that you feel. You are feeling that something's missing, and you know that you can help these people or help anybody by doing this one program because you feel so passionate about it, and that's something like you can feel in your bones.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to look and find your clients. There's going to be more than one person. There's going to be more than one person that's interested in what you have to do and in what you desire to do. So we just have to switch our thinking around, like needing to fix somebody. I also think about it this way. When we do it the other way, it's like we're trying to fix somebody. We're trying to fix
Mm-hmm.
somebody's problems.
Well, that's how they word it.
Yes,
They're
yes.
like, what's the problem? What's your fix?
Yes, yes. And instead, it's like, okay, what is like your solution? What are you here to create for people that will shift humanity, shift the world, that will transform the world? So you're actually looking at it from a broader perspective than just that little problem that you're trying to fix. You're actually creating this expansive energy and this expansive thought into like, okay, there's this thing that you get to transform now.
Mm-hmm.
And then from that space, you can create your person. It's almost like you're magnetizing people in versus trying to chase down clients when you're trying to fix. When you create from this expansive space of like, this is where I want to transform, people start to automatically be interested in what you're doing because you're not fixing them. You're offering them a new way of thinking, a new perspective, a new type of life, whatever it is.
Right. I love that. Magnetizing them in towards you versus chasing them.
Yes.
Because the other way does feel like a chase. It really does.
Yeah.
And I never thought of it that way. Whereas, and this is, my listeners know I talk a lot about being and who you be, and it's all about your beingness and who you're being in any given moment and being the epitome and the embodiment of your message. And that's what magnetism is, right? That's what draws people in, is when you are your message. And what I'm hearing from you is that soul aligned branding and branding from the heart, like really from your heart, and messaging from your heart is drawing people in, because you're actually being your message and you're actually being your brand versus creating a brand and then trying to fit it. This is about getting your brand to match you.
Yes. Yes. And just being an embodied version of your brand. That's what I love saying. It's like, how do you embody your brand? And if you look at all the brands that you love, there's a reason why you love them. It's more than just them fixing a problem for you. There's a bigger reason. There's certain brands that I absolutely love, and I'm loyal to them, and I'll share about their story, and I know their story back and forth because I'm bought in on their bigger mission and bigger why they're on this planet, what they're here to create.
Yeah. It's like, I buy my CBD oil out of all the CBD companies in the world, because there's fucking thousands and thousands of them now. I buy my oil from a specific company not because I believe that their product is the best. I mean, who knows? I think that their product is really fucking good, but it's not that. I'm sold on their mission and how they give back, and the fact that they actually take their CBD and do educational programs at senior centers and help get seniors off of their pain meds. Like, I love that mission. And so I'm going to keep buying from their product, and I can feel their soul, and that I'm connected to them in that way. And I think all of our listeners can probably think of at least one brand that they support, not because they think the product's really the best or that they think that they're solving their problem, but because they really just believe in who they are and feel super connected to them.
Exactly. It's 100% correct, and it's that heart connection again. You go back to the mission, you go back to the heart of the brand, and that's what you feel, and that's what makes you a brand versus a commodity. Because anybody, like I said, can have a website. Anybody can create a quote unquote logo and slap it on and call it a quote unquote brand, but there is no soul behind it.
Right.
There is no connection, and that heart connection is what's going to separate you from all the other brands that are out there. What's going to make you truly unique.
Yeah. Word. Mic drop. Yes. So much yes to all of this. Minling, we're just reaching the end of this episode. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with our listeners?
So my final thought is, be true to who you are. Allow yourself to listen to what it is you're here to say, what it is you're here to share, and trust that whatever that is perfect for you. Don't get your mind all wrapped up in like, but I don't know how. Really just trust what you're here to share with the world and stand firm in that truth.
I love that. Stand firm in your truth, people. Stand firm in your truth. Okay, Minling, thank you so much for bringing your wisdom to the show. Why don't you tell our listeners how they can stalk you online? And I will definitely have all of these links with the correct spelling on in the show notes. So let them know. How do you want them to stalk you online?
Yeah, you can definitely go to brandfameschool.com, and there's also a free guide there. There's also a free masterclass there. So my IT brand guide to unbland your brand is there, and it goes over my process. You can also find me on Facebook or Instagram with the handle Minling Chuang, and I know it's probably a funky spelling, so it'll be in the notes.
It will. So everyone, go grab her freebies because they're really great and they're going to help you dive deeper into your brand. Again, Minling, thank you so much for just bringing your wisdom and your dose of reality around branding to the audience. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me. This is so much fun.
And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining me and Minling on today's Thought Leader, where I am challenging you to rise up, speak up, and create a movement. If you have any questions for myself or for Minling about this episode, please do reach out to us on social media. My handle is at I am Ruby. All the handles and that much more are going to be in the show notes. And let us know what you think about this episode. If you are listening on iTunes, please be sure to download a few episodes and drop a rating and review on iTunes. And I will see you back here on Thursday for another new episode of Today's Thought Leader.